The Godfather Part 2 presents two parallel stories. One concerns mafia boss Michael Corleone in 1958-1959 after the events of the first film. Another is a series of flashbacks from 1917 to 1925, following his father Vito Corleone, from his adolescence in Sicily to the founding of the Corleone family in New York. The film opens with the funeral of young Vito's father, Antonio Andrini, who was murdered in 1901 in the Sicilian town of Corleone for insulting the local mafia boss, Don Ciccio. During the procession, Vito's brother, who has vowed revenge on the Don, is murdered. Vito's mother goes to Ciccio to beg for her mercy, but he refuses, knowing 9-year-old Vito will later seek revenge. Her mother holds Ciccio hostage with her sting, allowing her son to escape, and Ciccio's men kill her. They search for the boy in town, but the townspeople help him escape. Vito sailed to New York, and at Ellis Island, an immigration officer chose Corleone, Vito's hometown, as his surname, and he was registered as Vito Corleone. In 1958, in a scene similar to the opening of the first film, Corleone family godfather Michael Corleone confronts various business and family matters at a first-party lavish party in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Deal with, for his son's wedding present. In his office, Michael meets with corrupt Nevada Senator Pat Geary to discuss the price of his hotel, casino gambling license for the family to purchase. Geary, who clearly disdains Michael and other Italian businessmen who moved to his state to pursue gambling opportunities, promises to make Michael's acquisition of a gambling license an arduous process. Michael ends his conversation with Geary when he refuses to pay the exorbitant fee that Geary is demanding, telling the senators he will get nothing. Michael also deals with his smug sister Connie. Connie has recently divorced her second husband, but she plans to marry a man named Johnson without her apparent support, and Michael does not approve of him. Connie is still angry that her brother killed her husband Carlo years ago for betraying her family. Michael also speaks with Johnny Ora, the right-hand man of Jewish mobster Hyman Roth, who supports Michael's entry into the gambling industry. Belatedly, Michael deals with Frank Five His Angels Pentangeli. He was his partner in business, and Corleone took over the territory of New York City after the death of his caporal Peter His Clemenza. Boss, Pentangeli told Michael, your father did business with Hyman Roth. Your father respected Hyman Roth, but your father never trusted Hyman Roth. I'm sorry, and then left abruptly. Later that night, when his wife, Kay, notices the bedroom window curtains are inexplicably open, allowing two unseen assassins to batter the bedroom with bullets, Michael narrowly escaped an assassination attempt. The two killers were found dead, having been killed by a mole on the premises. Michael then tells lawyer and associate Tom Hagen that the hit was done with the help of someone close to him and that he trusts Hagen to do everything in his power to protect his family. I have to go. Flashback. In 1917 New York, an adult Vito Corleone works with his friend Genco Abundando in a Lower East Side grocery store. The neighborhood is controlled by Black Hand member Don Fanucci, who extorts protection money from local businesses. One night, Vito's neighbor Clemenza asks Vito to hide his armory. The movie jumps to Michael's time. Michael meets with Hyman Roth in Miami, Florida, and tells Michael that he believes Frank Pentangeli is responsible for the assassination, and that Pentangeli will pay for it. When Michael travels to Brooklyn, he informs Pentangeli that Ross was actually behind this and that Michael has plans to deal with Ross, but to surprise Ross, Frankie finds himself with the Rosado brothers. Need to cooperate with. While asleep, Frito receives a call in the middle of the night from Johnny Ora, Hyman Roth's right-hand man, revealing Frito to be a family traitor. Johnny Ora conspires with Frito to tell him that Frank Pentangeli will make peace with the Rosado brothers. Johnny Ora asks Frito for information about a meeting between these two parties of his and whether Pentangeli will be alone. Frito refuses to cooperate and tells Johnny Ora never to call him again. When Pentangeli meets with Rosados at a local bar, he is told hello Michael Corleone when he is attacked from behind, but the attempted murder is accidentally interrupted by a police officer. Pentangeli is declared dead and his bodyguard Willie Chikai is hit by a car while shooting Rosados, who drives away. Back in Nevada, Tom Hagen is summoned to a Carson City brothel run by Michael's older brother Frito, where Senator Geary is suspected of involvement in the death of a prostitute, and Tom is accused of being a senator. Friendship between the deputies and the Corleone family. Meanwhile, Michael Ross meets him in Havana, Cuba in late 1958, when dictator Fulgencio Batista is seeking American investment and communist guerrillas are trying to overthrow the government. At Ross' birthday party, Michael mentions the rebels' chances of victory, questioning their dealings in Cuba. He witnessed the murder of a police officer in Havana, as well as the rebels themselves. The comment prompted Roth to personally point out that Michael failed to provide his $2 million to strengthen the partnership. Frito arrives in Havana with the promised money and meets Michael. Michael mentions Hyman Ross and Johnny Ora, but Frito says he never met them. Michael tells his brother that it was Ross who tried to kill him and that he plans to try again. I confide in you. Michael assures Frito that he has already moved on, and that Hyman Roth will never ring in the new year. Instead of giving the money to Ross, Michael asks him who ordered Frank Pentangeli to be killed. Ross avoids the question and instead angrily talks about Michael's orchestrated murder of his old friend Mo Green. Michael asked Frito, who knows Havana well, to show Senator Geary and other major officials and businessmen a good time. Shortly after, at the sex show, Frito makes a loud comment about what Johnny Orr told him about the place, contradicting what he said to Michael twice about not knowing Ross or Orr. Michael now realizes that the traitor is his brother and sends a bodyguard to look after Ross. Johnny Orr is strangled, but Ross is taken to the hospital in a fragile condition from a heart condition, where Michael's enforcer is shot dead in an attempt to kill him. In the middle of the night, at Batista's New Year's Eve party, Michael grabs Frito's head tightly and kisses him. "I know you were Frito." Despite Michael's pleas, Frito refuses to go with Michael. Flashback. The Black Hand's Don Fanucci is aware of the partnership between Vito, Clemenza, and Sal Tessio and wants a share of the weekly prize money. Clemenza and Tessio agree to pay, but Vito hesitates and asks his friends to leave everything in his own hands so that Fanucci will accept less, and Vito actually gives Fanucci 6 of what he requested. Shortly after, during a neighborhood fiesta, Vito murdered Fanucci in the hallway outside his apartment building and took it to the front of the tenement house. "I rejoined my wife and 3 children on the stairs." Vito tells young Michael that his father loves him very much. In January 1959, after escaping Cuba, Nevada, Michael returns to his snow-covered home on Lake Tahoe. There, Tom Hagen tells him that Ross has escaped Cuba after having a stroke and is recovering in Miami. Michael's body, his guard, has died and Frito has died. Hidden in New York. Hagen also informs Michael that Kay had a miscarriage while he was away. Distraught by the news, Michael angrily demands to know the child's gender, but Tom is unable to tell him. Flashback. With Fanucci dead and no one to take over the Black Hand, Vito earned the respect of the neighborhood and by operating from his Genco Pura Olive Oil Company's storefront, began to interfere in local disputes. He manages as well as does favorites to others in the community, such as a local young woman at risk of eviction. Vito threatened his landlord into letting him stay for a few more weeks free rent. In 1959 in Washington, D.C., a Senate committee including Senator Geary conducted an investigation into the Corleone family. They question a disgruntled soldier Willie Chich about his role as the family's button man, but he is unable to implicate Michael as he never received direct orders from him. When Michael appears before the committee, Senator Geary flaunts his support for Italian Americans and declines the trial. Denied all criminal charges against him, from the assassination to his business status as the operator of several casinos in Nevada. Michael issues a statement asking the commission to summon witnesses to substantiate the charges against him. The hearing ends with the chair promising a witness to do just that. Frank Pentangeli, who survived the Rosado brothers' attack, makes a deal with the FBI and plans to testify against Michael. Note that Michael's brother, Frito, was found and persuaded to return to Nevada, explaining his betrayal to Michael at a private meeting. Angry at being taken over as patriarch in favor of Michael, he wants respect and his rights. He also tells Michael that the Senate committee's lead attorney is Ross Mann. Michael tells Frito, "You're nothing to me right now. Not a brother, not a friend, nobody. I personally instructed him not to let anything happen to him." At the hearing, where Frank Pentangeli testifies, Michael appears accompanied by Pentangeli's brother, who was brought from Sicily, whose presence causes Frank to recant his earlier statements about Michael. When pressured, Pentangeli claims to the FBI that he only told the FBI what they wanted to hear. With no witnesses to testify against Michael, the commission closed and Hagen acted as Michael's attorney and asked for an apology. Later, in the hotel room, Kay tries to leave Michael and takes the children. Michael initially tries to appease her, but she reveals to him that her recent miscarriage was actually an abortion to avoid adding another child to Michael's criminal legacy. When she got to her, he lost his temper and beat her badly. She also tells him the baby was a boy, further infuriating Michael. Flashback. When Vito Corleone visited Sicily for the first time in over 20 years with his family on a family trip, he asked his 90-year-old Don Sixio to import his olive oil into America and give him his blessing. Was introduced as a man seeking when Sixio asked Vito who his father was. Vito said, "My father's name is Antonio Andrini. This is for you," and avenged his death. Brother. As they flee Sixio's compound and his men, Don Tomasolo is shot in the leg by one of Sixio's bodyguards, leaving him with a permanent limp. In April 1959, Carmela Corleone, Vito's widow and mother of his children, died, and the entire Corleone family reunited for her funeral. Michael still avoids the unhappy Frito, but relents when Connie pleads with him. Signal his capo that protection has expired. Michael, Tom Hagen, and Rocco Lampone discuss the final negotiations with Hyman Roth, who has sought asylum in various countries and failed, and was even denied entry into Israel as a returning Jew. Michael rejects Hagen's advice that the Corleone family's status is secure and that killing Ross and the Rosado brothers for revenge is an unnecessary risk. Hagen later visits Frank Pentangeli, imprisoned at a military base, to see him take his own life, like a failed ancient Roman conspirator who was promised in return to care for his family after committing suicide. Suggest. With Connie's consent, Kay visits the children but cannot bear to leave them for too long. When Michael arrives, he coldly closes the door in front of her. The film reaches its climax with a montage of assassinations and deaths reminiscent of the end of the first part. Arriving at the airport for custody, Hyman Roth is killed by Rocco Lampone, who poses as a journalist and is quickly shot dead by Roth's bodyguards. At a military base, Frank Pentangeli is found dead after following Hagen's instructions and committing suicide in a bathtub. Frito was murdered by Al Neri while fishing in Lake Tahoe. Frito says Ave Mary for helping him catch fish. The penultimate scene is set in late 1941, with the Corleone family preparing a surprise birthday party for their father, Vito. Sonny introduces the family to Connie's future husband and son-as trader, Carlo Rizzi. They all talked about the recent Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, and Michael shocked everyone by announcing that he had just enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. S. father says he has high hopes for Michael. Only Frito supports his brother's decision. When Sal Tessio walks in with the cake for the party and Vito arrives, Michael leaves the room to greet him. The final shot of the film shows Michael sitting alone on the shores of Lake Tahoe in quiet contemplation.